Hello, and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. I'm Lindsay Broker, and I'm here with Joe Lalo. We might have Jeffrey Poole coming in later. He's on the road and trying to get home to jump in with us. But we do have a cool guest for you tonight, Timothy L. Cerepaka, who also writes as Lucas Flint. And he started out with fantasy, and now he's doing some stuff in the superhero genre. And he's going to talk about how he's gained some traction there. Let me go ahead and read your intro there. Timothy was born in Austin, Texas, grew up building Lego sets, reading books from many different genres on many different subjects, and playing video games. He soon began writing stories and posted them on the internet on a fan site dedicated to the Lego toy line called Bionicle, something like that. There he met similar authors starting out and received a lot of valuable criticism to help improve his work. He eventually published his first book, an epic fantasy novel titled The Mad Voyage of Prince Malak, in June of 2014, and many more followed. And this year he started publishing superhero fiction under Lucas Flint, where he's seen some good success, and we're going to talk to him about that. Because as longtime listeners will know, Joe is trying to crack the superhero fiction genre, so... welcome to the show, Timothy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Cool. Well, we'll try to be entertaining and informative or something like that.
Yeah.
Why don't you start out telling us a little more about your story and what made you decide on self-publishing?
I've always, wanted to be a professional writer. I mean, I didn't really start writing until I was 12. I actually used to really hate reading and writing for a while there, but then I grew to like it after reading, the books based on the Bionicle toy line stuff. And I started writing fan fiction, and then eventually I started thinking about, going pro at some point. So I started looking into different publishing options. Originally, I was going to go with traditional publishing because it seemed like the best way to make money at the time. But then I began reading more about self-publishing. I realized, I had better chances of success publishing my own work on Amazon and other places, so I've been doing that ever since, and I've been pretty happy with it.
Nice. You've actually been quite prolific. It looks like you just published your first book a couple years ago. Did you have a whole bunch of them saved up, or are you just writing pretty quickly?
No, I've just been writing pretty quickly. And some of the ideas I've had for a while, but the actual books themselves, I've just, written within the last few years.
So how did you feel about starting with fantasy? Did you find it challenging, or how's it been going?
Yeah, it's the world building that's the toughest part for me. Because, I've found that if I do too much world building at first, it becomes sort of boring. I don't want to write it. But if I do too little, then it's kind of harder. It's also hard to write. So I have to try to strike a balance, which I don't think I've done so far. I am putting out a new fantasy trilogy early next year that I think will hopefully be better than my last books, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay, and what made you decide to start a new pen name and to do superhero fiction?
Well, I've always liked superhero stuff, Marvel and DC, and stuff like that. And I decided to try out superheroes because I thought it might be more an easier genre for me to break into. It might be more lucrative since my fancy stuff doesn't make me a whole lot of money. So I thought, superheroes might be better because I know a few indie authors who also do superheroes, and they're doing pretty well. So I just started, researching the genre and figuring out what sells and stuff, and then wrote my own book and put it out there into the Lucas Flint pen name, and it's been doing pretty well ever since.
Nice. And I did take a look at the genre. I think it's under fantasy superheroes on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it looked like about 15,000 in the Amazon store would get you into the top 100, which is, a lot less competitive than some of the other fantasy categories. Did you find that were you able to kind of get into the top 100 right away, or was it still
Yeah, it was pretty quick when I put out the first book back in May. The highest it got was to number 8 in the superhero list, and its overall rank in the Amazon store was like 2,086, I believe. So there's, it doesn't take, like, the superhero genre is not a very big one. So it doesn't take a whole lot of sales or KU borrows to get up there. Um, but you can still make good money from it. Not as much as some of the bigger genres, but it's a good little niche that's really fun to write in.
Cool. And I did notice when I was looking at it that only some of the books actually looked like legitimate, like what I imagine a superhero story being, with
Yeah,
more kind of the comic style.
yeah, that's a big problem in the superhero list. That there's like urban fantasy or erotica or whatever, or romance or whatever. So it's like it's just sort of but I actually think that sort of also almost makes it easier to I mean, it makes it difficult sometimes to succeed because those books are up there clogging at the list. But at the same time, if you can get an actual, honest to God superhero book out there, um, you got the right cover and everything, it can do well. I think there is an audience out there of people who want just straight up superhero stuff, not like urban fantasy or romance or whatever. It can be a little hard to find, maybe, but it's there.
Cool. And for those who maybe haven't checked out the category on Amazon and don't know anything about it, could you tell us sort of what is expected, like what's typical in that niche?
All right. What's typical is that's usually sort of a, your kind of age story, sort of. You have a young male protagonist, usually, high school age, like between 14 and 17 years old. They're and they, develop or get their new powers, and they have to learn how to use them to fight some, new supervillains or new threats to their, world or their hometown or whatever. Think uh, sort of like how Harry Potter is kind of like, coming of age. That sort of theme is pretty popular among straight superhero readers.
Okay, and what do you think would make it different from, like, you mentioned that the like paranormal romance people and stuff are
Mhm.
putting their stuff in. They've got their werewolves and stuff that have
Yeah.
their powers. Are there like certain types of powers or something that the audience expects the superhero characters to have?
Um, yeah, I think like super strength, flight, and like super speed are very popular powers among superhero protagonists. I've given my own protagonist those powers, so that seems to be, you know, and there are a bunch of different powers you could go with, but those are the most popular ones that I noticed when I was doing my research in the genre.
Yeah, do you find that, like, if it's Superman or, kind of modeled after that, are
Hmm.
those more like easier to sell, or whatever? I don't know that much about comics and superheroes. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, but is there? It sounds like there's certain powers that are more popular. Did you?
yeah,
Sounds like you kind of did the right to market thing and
yeah.
research
Yeah.
was selling.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the more, I guess, traditional your superhero is, they have the spandex and the costume, the name, and the powers and stuff, then I think the better you'll probably do. That's
All
what I
right,
found in my
and
work and my experience.
all right, cool. Let me ask one more question before handing you to Joe. Do you find, because one of the things with writing fantasy is, like, it seems like if you make your character too powerful, because I've done
Hmm.
sorcerers and mages and stuff, you have to worry about things being too easy for
Yeah.
them. Do you do like a kryptonite or something like that? How do you combat that, making them just too powerful for it to be believable that they're in trouble?
Um, yeah. What I do with my superhero stuff, I had set my protagonist. Sometimes he goes up against villains who are genuinely stronger than him, but sometimes he also goes up against um, villains who are just smarter than him, for example, or they're more experienced, and so they might necessarily be stronger than him, but they um, have more, experience fighting superheroes themselves, so they might be able to better outthink him and maybe trick him, or they'll have a big, plan going on behind the scenes that they're working on that he might not be, aware of, or might be able to thwart it until the last moment or whatever. Just like, and yeah, yeah, and yeah, like I said, he's my protagonist. He's a young teenager, so he's not experienced as some other super characters in that setting. So he gets pretty regularly. well, not regularly, but it's like he definitely has a struggle to defeat some supervillains, even keep up with some of the older superheroes that he knows. So I just handle that topic by not, you know, by just giving him, you know, more competent, antagonists and stuff. So.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. I guess that's pretty classic to have the also superpowered and bad guy that they have to go up against.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, a little later, I'm going to ask some questions about the marketing, but let me hand you
Okay.
to Joe for a few more questions.
Yep. All right. So my first question is, we've had some people come on the show and talk about how sci-fi fans can be very cliquey. Like they'll stick to Star Trek or Star Wars and sort of shun anyone else. In my experience, comic book fans, that's say fans of actual just comic books, not necessarily superhero literature, can be even worse with diehard DC or Marvel fans.
Yeah.
Do you think that sort of would influence sales and reviews of a non-affiliated superhero book like this?
You mean like? Do you mean like? Do I think that some people might be like, this isn't like my particular favorite Marvel story or my favorite DC story, and therefore I don't like it, or this is just like something I like, and therefore I like it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, Possibly. I don't know. I think that it does help to, I guess, borrow, tropes, I guess, from major superhero, franchises or whatever, like Marvel or DC. I mean, I've taken plenty of inspiration. I think if you read my series, you definitely notice lots of inspiration from Marvel and DC. And most of it was intentional. Like I've made characters that, basing them off characters from Marvel and DC and stuff, but while adding my own, unique twists and stuff. But I don't know if readers, my readers, I'm not sure if they're comparing my books to, Marvel DC or not. Well, there was one reader I know who mentioned, and it was not, on one of the 5-star reviews for my book, that he thought it was just like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I thought it was a nice compliment.
Yeah, that's good. It's the most successful film series in the history of anything.
Yep.
Another thing, like we talk about standard powers, like you were saying, how super speed and such. I think on TV tropes to refer to the flying brick as
Yeah.
someone with super strength and the ability to fly. You ever get afraid that you're going to draw comparisons to the one, like, whatever, we'll put it this way. Marvel has Quicksilver, DC has the Flash. They're both just super fast guys. So obviously it's standard to sort of plop in your equivalent. So are you afraid that anyone's going to draw a comparison to your character and maybe compare it negatively to a pre-existing hero with the same power set?
Well, I'm not really afraid of that. I'm just, I guess because, while I do take inspiration from Marvel and DC and other sources, I don't try to do it, exactly. I try to put my own spin on it and stuff. I mean, people can compare my stories negatively or positively to other, to like Marvel, DC, or whatever, but I wouldn't. But I just don't care, I guess, because the superhero genre is so big and so long. It's like it's almost impossible, in my opinion, to make a character or whatever that's totally original. And just between Marvel and DC alone, they have like 70 or 80 years of comics behind them. That's not counting movies and cartoons and video games and so on and so forth. So I don't really worry too much if my characters. I try to avoid making blatant, copies, but at the same time, I know that nothing is truly original. So I just sort of focus on making the best, characters and story I can, and just, um, you know, going with that.
Yeah, that's fair. Like more so than many genres, the superhero, well, the comic book has been mined for a very long time. I'd actually heard that for a long time they realized that their readers would age out, so a lot of comic book writers would just use the same series of plots every 7 years or
Yeah.
so. So if they can get away with it within their own series, and I think you can certainly handle a couple of tropes within your own.
Yeah, and I just see it as, just, taking tropes that have been established and using them in my own way. Just like every genre has tropes and stuff. It's just knowing what they are and using them.
Absolutely. All right, so obviously superheroes are more associated with comic books than prose, and that can lead a lot of people to focus on character appearance and action. So do you find you have to devote more time to descriptions and to action scenes than you might have in your other genres?
I think there's definitely more emphasis on action scenes that I put in my superhero book. I think that's what because they're pretty short. They're between like 55 and 70,000 words each, So I keep the pace going pretty, smooth, pretty quickly and stuff. I try to describe things pretty well, but I don't have like really detailed description. I think I could probably put more detail in my descriptions in my fantasy novels. My superhero novels are a bit, I try to keep them quicker paced, so I don't spend too much time on, a lot of descriptions unless it's necessary or I'm trying to invoke a particular, effect or feel.
That's fair. Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people might overlook is when you're trying to write action, the pace becomes extremely important. And obviously, a superhero book is going to be a lot of action.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see how you certainly wouldn't want description to get in the way of the rapid pace.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to a couple of Jeff's questions now.
Okay.
And the first one is, in case some of our viewers are considering taking the plunge or else hopping genres, what do you feel are some necessary tropes that should be included in a book that contains superheroes? Now, you talked a little bit about this, but maybe you can sort of expand on that.
All right. Well, I would say the protagonist needs, I would say, needs to be a young, like high school age boy. I mean, you can have a female protagonist if you want. I'm not saying you can't, but it's just I've noticed that what's selling is that books with male protagonists seem to be selling at the moment compared to books with female protagonists, and they're all high school age. They also tend to they're in a world usually that already has like an existing they're not usually the very first superhero within their world. Sometimes usually a wider world of superheroes out there, and there's a lot of emphasis on the character, learning how to use their powers. They might have a training sequence, or they might just be, they might have a mentor figure of some sort who's, maybe another superhero or something who's teaching them how to use their powers and become, strong and stuff. And the antagonist is usually a supervillain who's, much stronger and, deadlier and smarter than them. And they're usually set in more urban settings, like a city or something like that. And like I said, there also tends to be a lot of action. So you want to have action, and yeah, those are the most important tropes I can think of off the top of my head at the moment.
Yep. I guess because we'll talk a little bit about this in the marketing too, but because there's so many superhero movies right now, basically, if your first book can be sort of traced out just by watching any of the origin movies, just like there's going to be 4 or 5 story beats that have to get hit, right?
Yeah, it's definitely helpful to be familiar with Marvel and DC and stuff. It's because you can use that for to bring resonance in your writing. Like if people read your book and like, hey, this is like in Iron Man or in Doctor Strange or the Avengers or whatever, that can, I think that can actually help your books sell. I think in the context of like us as indie authors, it's more important to focus on what other indie authors have done in the superhero genre, but it's also important to be aware of the wider history of the superhero genre and what's going on at the moment and stuff.
Yeah, which sort of brings it on to the next question, which is, where do you draw your inspiration from when it comes to creating your characters?
Well, like I said earlier, I've taken a lot of inspiration from Marvel and DC. I've taken characters like I have my own basically a Superman equivalent character in the story. He's not one of the main characters, but he's there. And but I also like to try to add my own little twists on the characters and make them more original. Like I have a character in the 8th book who's a supervillain who's in prison who also likes cat magazines. So sometimes like to give characters certain little traits like that to make them a bit more unexpected, maybe a little humorous, maybe more human. So yeah, just get inspiration from pretty much everywhere.
So basically, just like any other book, really.
Yeah, pretty much like any other book.
All right, and what are some common mistakes you feel other writers in the same genre are making or might be making that could be easily avoided?
Okay, let me think about that. I think that maybe the writing itself, like maybe they're sort of. I don't want to say their writing is the writing is a bit more amateurish. I feel like in comparison to other genres, like maybe I'm not say problem. I don't think most superhero readers really care, but I'm not saying that my writing is like high level, flowy literary stuff or anything. But it's just I noticed that in general things tend to be a bit more. I guess I don't want to say cliche, but there's definitely
The bar is lower here than
yeah,
in
it's
many
a
other
little
genres.
lower. I think because there's not as many authors. I think, and those um, you know few authors who are there, since there's not as many authors, I think it's a bit easier to succeed, even if you're not necessarily the greatest writer in the world. Not that I'm trying to hit on my fellow superhero authors or anything, but it's just my observations.
Yeah, you'll hear the term literary fiction when people are trying
Yeah.
to describe something as being more highfalutin. And I guess superhero fiction might be about as far from literary fiction as you can get thematically.
Yeah, but in my own books, I do try to. I always try to write a good story, a good entertaining story first and foremost. That's always the number one priority with every book I write. But I sometimes do try to deal with more, I don't want to say heavy subject matter, but I'll deal with issues that are sort of a bit deeper than what you might expect in the superhero genre. I mean, again, that stuff is in the back. I try to keep the stuff background, secondary. Don't try to make it in your face. That's not what superhero readers want, but it keeps things more interesting, at least for me. I don't know if my own readers find it interesting, but
Yeah, superhero fiction is one of those things where like it's very easy. It's very well, what can I say? It lends itself well to sort of hiding morals and putting in allegories and metaphors for life. I mean, heck, we talk about the origin stories of coming of age in the teenage years, and it's about the illusion has been drawn to puberty by many an origin story. So it's always sort of mirroring the things that are going on in someone's life. So you can certainly put some heavier social commentary in there effectively. I'll just say, because the question was common mistakes you can make, and again, frequent listeners of the show will know that my least successful novel is a superhero novel. It's not a coming-of-age story at all, so I made that mistake. And also, apparently, people, I didn't use any of the popular powers. In fact, the entire shtick is that they are unpopular, useless powers. So overall, it turns out, don't be a renegade with this stuff, and maybe you'll do a little better.
Yeah.
But those are all the questions we have for now. So I'm going to pass you back to Lindsay for the marketing.
Okay.
All right, don't feel bad, Joe. That was my exact thinking when we had Domino Finn on talking about all the tropes for urban fantasy, and my one urban fantasy that I didn't do had none of them. Apparently, that's not a good thing if you actually want to sell books. All right, Timothy. So it sounds like with the sort of teenage high school characters, sounds like a male character does best. So have you done any research and checked, like, for your target audience, is that what it is? Is it like teenage or middle grade male readers for the most part?
I call it young adult, but I think I do have some young adult fans, but I think readers of any age can enjoy it. But I do put under young adult because I think most superhero books do tend to lean that way. So that's just why I call it, just for marketing purposes.
Okay, and do you find that, I guess, I don't know what the numbers are, but it seems like the teenage male might not be most represented or not be reading a lot necessarily. It seems like a demographic that maybe that's they're not buying a lot of books. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you found that to be true, and is that challenging at all?
Well, my series has done pretty well, so obviously someone's buying it. I just don't know if it actually is, male teenagers or if it's a more, diverse crowd. I think it probably is a bit, probably older than that, but I haven't really actually done any hard research into the demographics of my books. Um, I just, I just made that, I made that my target audience of, I guess young adult males. But again, I think my actual fan base is probably a bit more diverse than that. But so.
Yeah, I was just curious if you'd like if you had a mailing list, if you
Oh
put
yeah,
in contact with people. And
I do have a mailing list. I haven't actually, sent them surveys about that stuff yet. I feel like it's too small at the moment to be of any use, but maybe I should go ahead and do it anyway. But
yeah, it would be interesting to know
yeah.
because it's not like I was with my girlfriends and we watched, I don't even remember what it's called, Galactic something or other. What's the one with the raccoon?
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't put that in superhero, but so and it's not like there are only teenage boys that are going to read these books. But I was just curious if that would be a hard market
But
to reach.
I remember reading somewhere once that I think most young adult readers are actually adults themselves. So because I think there's something about the young, sort of feeling about the young adult genre, maybe it's not as, typically not as serious or bleak. Maybe it's more, fiction marketed towards adults. So I bet you. So I think I do have, probably a lot of adult readers, I'm sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I noticed you're in KDP Select.
Mm-hmm.
So are you seeing that you're getting quite a few borrows? How do they compare to sales?
Yeah, page reads and sales about half and half. I make half my income from page reads and half from sales. And for all there, I was actually making 15,000 page reads a day. It's gone down a little bit since then, but it's still pretty high. So, and I definitely recommend KDP Select and Kindle Unlimited for at least the first 90 days. Because as far as I can tell, superhero genre is pretty much non-existent on other non-Amazon retailers. At least that one I know of. And all the other superhero authors I know of who are doing well are in Kindle Unlimited. And I think it's obviously just easier to gain traction if you're in Kindle Unlimited too. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if I've noticed that category as a option you can select on most of the other sites.
Yeah.
So when you decided to launch this new pen name and jump into this new genre, how did you get the ball rolling and get some early sales?
I did I did a cross promo with another superhero author I know who sells better than me. He shared my book with his mailing list, and I got like 25 sales from that share alone. But in all honesty, I didn't really do much marketing for it. I just sort of, wrote to market and relied on Amazon's algorithms to do the marketing for me. I got enough sales early on to get the ball rolling, and so I think that's what's a big part of why it's done so well. I've used Amazon's algorithms to get the books, marketed towards the right kind of people who like superhero fiction. Because I haven't really spent much money on actual advertising since publishing it, and it's like I think I spent maybe less than $100 on advertising for this series since it came out. But since sales naturally decay on Amazon after a while, so I was thinking about trying out Facebook ads or Amazon ads or something, see if I can get sales. I mean, it's still selling pretty good. I'm still making good money, but I want to see if I can bump them up just a little bit more with with Amazon ads or Facebook ads or something.
Yeah, more is always better.
Mm-hmm.
Did you launch it at 99 cents, or what's your pricing strategy?
Yeah, for the first week, the first book was 99 cents, and then I bumped it up to its full price of $2.99, which is its price, which is pretty much what it's been since then. Excuse me. and every other book in the series has been $3.99. I released the other books at full price. They didn't, I want my readers to expect that they have to get the full price. They have to get the book at full price when it comes out. And it's worked out pretty well so far. I've managed to, certainly hasn't hurt sales as far as I can tell.
All right, yeah, that's great if you can get the Kindle Unlimited borrows too to kind of help keep you up there. Can you we talked about this a little bit, but it sounds like you're having an easier time in this genre than with your fantasy. Do you think that's just because you know more now, you're more experienced as an author, or is it because this is a smaller niche and it's just you found it easier to gain visibility?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of factors because, I've been publishing for 2 years now, and when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Like my first year, I made like $57, I think, just that whole first year from Amazon and all the other places. But I've been learning, experiencing and stuff, and now I have a better understanding of what how to sell books and what readers expect and how to use Amazon's algorithms and how to write to market and stuff like that. So they'll take all that knowledge and put it behind this new series and to help make it into a success. And I think the fact that the superhero genre is not as crowded and not as competitive has also helped because I think people in that genre are looking for real superhero books, and so since there sadly aren't that many in comparison to all the other types of books that are put on the list, if you have a genuine superhero novel and you put it out there, I think you'll have an easier time getting traction than you would maybe in other more crowded genres like romance or fantasy or whatever.
Yeah, I would imagine that someone that actually clicks on superhero fantasy on Amazon is not looking for erotica or paranormal romance with vampires or something. So yeah, I could see where they would just maybe skim past those and look for the cover with you've got these covers with these superheroes kind of on the front. So
just make it. That's the reason why I call it the superhero sun, is just to extra emphasize that it's an actual superhero book. So I went all out.
No, that's a great idea to
I just went all,
get keywords.
yeah, I just went all out just to make sure as obvious as possible to anyone reading or glancing through the list that this is a superhero novel. I think it's part of what helps is just being obvious about it.
You mentioned that you haven't had to spend too much on advertising, and that's awesome. You are publishing a lot. It looks like you just put out the 9th book in the series.
It's the final book too. Although I'm going to be doing their superhero series next year.
All right. Well, do you feel that? How important do you think that is right now? I mean, not everybody's going to be able to do a book a month. Do you think they can still make it work with if they're trying Kindle Unlimited and maybe they're just writing 2 or 3 books a year?
I think maybe a little bit more than 2 or 3 books, maybe 5 or 6 perhaps. I mean, I write quickly because I want to take advantage of the Amazon algorithms and stuff. And the more books you have out there, the more money you have coming in. Even as books, you guys know, even if books decrease in sales naturally over time, they'll still bring in at least a little bit of income. So, but as for whether you can make more money, yeah, you don't have to publish as fast. I mean, I know other superhero authors, or at least one other guy who's making more money than me actually has less books out. So obviously you don't need to do it the way I did. I just do it that way because I just want to build up my income fast. And and I know from talking with other authors that one of the best ways to do that is put a bunch of books in a reasonably popular genre and then in a short period of time. So that's just for my own personal reasons I wrote that fast. I don't think you actually need to. It's helpful. I think if you can, definitely not. You definitely should try it, but at the same time, I wouldn't call it a necessity. Although it's good to sometimes it's good to lean towards doing too much than too little, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you think if somebody was going to try that didn't write quite as fast, that maybe they should hold back until they have maybe the first 3 novels ready to go, and then release others subsequently quickly?
Well, I guess so. And if you want to do that, sure. Um, I didn't, pre-write any of them. I just, wrote and published, wrote and published. Um, so I found that really, helped keep things, going. I don't know, maybe if it would have been better if and because for my other series, for my past fantasy series, I did the opposite where um, put out, where I'd write up a couple of books beforehand and then put them out. But I decided I was just gonna, publish as I write them. So that's worked out for me. Um, but yeah, I guess if you want to, if you're a slower writer, but you want to take advantage of the 30-day cliff or whatever, then writing a few novels ahead of time and then putting them out, you know, however you want to do that. Whether it's like a new novel every 30 or 60 or 90 days or whatever, sure, that could probably work with other genres. I don't see why it couldn't work with the superhero genre. I haven't done that, but possible.
Okay, and is there a kind of a length that people expect from the novels in this niche? Can they be shorter or
Yeah, they
what are
definitely
your
lean towards
thoughts?
shorter. I think like between for my books, for example, they're all pretty much between 55 and 70,000 words. Um, so that's a good length for a superhero novel. I think most readers are gonna like it, and it gives you good KU pages and stuff. So um, it's not too long that it takes a long time to write, but it's not too short that you're putting out more quickly than your readers can keep up with. I guess that's why I found it's a good length. And that's what I think most books in that genre tend to fall somewhere within that range I just gave y'all. And I personally like the length because it's quick to write. I don't have to spend a lot of time editing or rewriting or anything.
All right, sounds good. As far as covers go, could you talk about what is sort of expected in this genre? Since it's kind of hard, as we talked about, since there's people
Mm-hmm.
putting their books in the category that they're really not superhero books.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be, for someone designing a cover, what should they put on there?
Well, the character needs to look like a superhero. He has like spandex, maybe wearing a mask, maybe having like floating above a city or standing in an urban street. Just sort of look at consider like how Superman and Batman and so on. They have you look at them, they're like the iconic superheroes. So um, you don't actually need capes or anything. But if you look at my books, for example, my main character on them, he's wearing a red and black spandex suit, and he's always like flying around or running towards the reader, whatever. It's like I just made a point of having my cover designer make sure these are very explicitly superheroes, so there's no doubt in anyone's mind. So yeah, just
All right, oh,
yeah.
sorry.
All right.
Just got a bit of lag there.
Mm-hmm.
Last question for me. You mentioned that you've got 9 books out now, and it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
that's the end of the series, you
Yep.
said.
Uh-huh.
Did you find that was there some attrition, or was 9 like a good number, or
Um,
do you wish you'd done more
I
or
was
less?
I was seeing sales going down from book to book, like because that's with any series that you don't get 100% readers from book one to book two, book three, or whatever. I mean, my books are still making back their costs and stuff, but at the same time, I was noticing that my series wasn't doing as well as it was the first few books. So I decided just rather than drag it on to the point where it wasn't people don't or wasn't selling anymore, I just give it a good ending and, hopefully end it on a high note. But actually, I'm going to write a sequel series um, for next year. And it wasn't because I was bored with it. I don't think, but the way I have it, that universe set up, I could probably do it, superhero adventures and stuff forever because there's so much, in it and stuff. It's just, I wanted to just give this series, I didn't want to keep it going even after people saw, after after it becomes financially viable, I guess, or not, not profitable. Also, by doing, as for why it's 9 books, because I want to do omnibus volumes next year. So I was thinking that, the first volume would have books 1, 2, and 3, and then volume 2 would have 4, 5, and 6, and volume 3 would have 6, 7, or 7, 8, and 9. So it lets me break it up into, 3 little omnibus volumes at some point in the future.
That's a good idea. I say as somebody who always ends up with 8 books in a series, and then I put 3 in a box set, and it's like, well, I guess I just won't put the rest in box sets. But C9, that works well. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I hope the next book one does well. I feel like you're right. People, there's always going to be some slide off, but anybody will check out a book 1. So there's a point where you want to,
gives readers more.
All right.
More places, more places to start. If you have multiple book ones rather than just one.
Definitely, and then it gives you more things to advertise too if you start doing the various sponsorship sites. All right, let me pass you to Joe.
Okay. Well, first off, we mentioned this earlier. Obviously, superhero movies are still going strong. I think Doctor Strange had the biggest solo standalone superhero movie opening. It just beat Iron Man. How closely do you watch sales, and do you feel like there's a spike in superhero book sales around when a big movie releases?
Yeah, so I don't know for sure, but I think there may be, because I know my superhero book, I released it back in May, which is around the time that Captain America Civil War came out, and that was a huge hit. So I think that, and not so, I think perhaps not so coincidentally, the summer months are my best months in terms of sales and income. So I think that when a superhero movie comes out, that it does lead to a sale for superhero books, as people maybe go on Amazon or other sites maybe to look for books like that. I don't know for sure. I haven't heard other superhero authors talk about this, but I think it's a real possibility.
Yeah, it's reasonable to assume, just because what if sci-fi has been getting a big resurgence lately, largely because Star Wars came back and was good. So I feel like anytime something starts to dominate the zeitgeist, so to speak, then people start looking for it in various other media.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit again. The superhero novel that I wrote is called The Other Eight, and one of the things, first, it was the first book I released that was not either sci-fi or fantasy, and I thought about putting it as on a pen name, and I didn't. And it's possible that's one of the reasons it didn't have a really strong launch, is because, and here's the question, do you think superhero readers tend to be specifically superhero readers and don't necessarily overlap with other genres?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I went with the pen name myself because I wanted to just, I wasn't sure if my own readers were, mostly fantasy readers would be, interested in it. I mean, when the book came out, I did tell my, Timothy L. Cerepaka readers about my Lucas Flint books, but besides that, I just wanted to have a clean start mostly because I don't know if superhero readers are like, they only read superhero books or if they'll read, multiple genres. I suspect they probably do read, multiple genres, if only because I don't think there are enough superhero books out there to necessarily sustain. It's not like a romance reader has thousands or millions of, romance books to go through, but superhero reader might not have that many to, read through. So, potentially they might be crossed over with other genres, like maybe urban fantasy. Because I think there are some similarities between urban fantasy and superheroes from what I know, which is partially, I think, why they're urban fantasy books in the superhero genre, but they are distinct. So
yeah, it's someone has pointed out that almost every action anything, like let's say a spy movie or the old 80s action movies, and therefore the related literary genres, they are about superheroes. They're not called superheroes, but they have abilities that no one else has, inexplicably so, So I could definitely see, if you're the kind of person who enjoys, Jack Reacher, this is a guy who's got an extra set of skills. I could certainly see that flowing into superhero and superhero flowing into others.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a matter of finding what the Venn diagram is, and then figuring out how to market across that.
Yeah.
All right. So also, when you were writing your story, you say 9 books in the series. Do you try to keep it very episodic and semi-standalone, or is there a sort of a strong arc across them to try to get people to follow on?
I do try to, give each book its own, self-contained story, but at the same time, I definitely do have, certain threads running in the background. Like, there's a secret government conspiracy, for example, that sort of, sometimes it's mostly in the background there, but every now and then the characters will come across hints or clues or whatever that will shed more light on what it is and stuff. And also, focus on like the main character himself, his own family background and stuff becomes more important as the series goes on and stuff. But yeah, with each book, it's not like it's not like you have to read. It's like each book is building up to this grand finale, like how like Harry Potter, for example, each book is like building on last, but it's like just sort of self-contained stories that also have their certain mysteries and themes or threads that are running through the background that I can just sort of pick up and focus on and put back when I feel like I need to.
All right. And this is a thought that I had. You were talking about how you got your first initial push just by being cross-promoted by another superhero author. It strikes me that every now and then you'll hear about some authors trying to do a shared universe, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't. I feel like superhero literature might be very well suited to a shared universe. Any thoughts about potentially, basically creating the indie author equivalent of a comic book label almost?
I've considered that. I do publish my superhero books under the Secret Identity Books imprint of my publishing house. I have the URL for that, but I haven't actually done anything with it yet. But I've considered doing like a collaborative work with other authors at some point maybe. The only example I can think of is have you heard of Wild Cards? It's like a series of novels by
George R. R. Martin. Yeah.
George R. R. Martin. That's like shared superhero universe. I haven't read those myself. I have heard of them, so if I know at least one, it's been done before. So, but yeah, I think that since comic books, superhero stuff has traditionally been shared or collaborative universes for better or worse. It's I might try it at some point. I just I'm more of a loner, I guess. I don't like collaborating with people. I've tried collaborating with the past, but just never worked out. So I've always just preferred to be able to, work by myself. But I've also thought about like doing, like a anthology or something. Like get a bunch of like short stories from various superhero authors and put them together. Especially since anthologies, multi-author anthologies, seem to be pretty popular at the moment. I've noticed a lot of them. So.
Yeah. It's funny we talk about if somebody was a dedicated superhero novel reader, they don't have a whole lot to go through. You can be reasonably sure that if someone's a dedicated superhero novel reader, they have read all of the good ones.
Yeah.
And it would be funny if eventually a shared universe arises and people start to notice crossovers between novels that they've already read. I, as a reader, would totally freak out and be excited if that happened.
Yeah.
So it's a cool thing I hope we see happen more often.
Yeah, maybe as the superhero genre grows, maybe we'll see something like that happen. I don't know if I'll be the one to do it or not. I might, I've thought about it, but at the same time, there's a lot of work involved. It's like I don't know if I want to take on that work or not. I've been reading about collaboration stuff just to get an idea of what it's like. So I guess we'll see. See what the future holds.
Yep. All right, I have a couple questions here from Jeff. The first one you've sort of already covered. He asks about specific advertising use, but you say you haven't really used very much paid advertising.
Yeah, I haven't really done too much, just mostly relying on Amazon's algorithms and my own mailing list and stuff.
So we'll go on to the mailing list question. You have a mailing list.
Mhm.
What do you usually do to entice people to subscribe?
I just tell people if you want to be the first to know about my new books, they just sign up. I mean, I don't have like a author, magnet. I thought, or a reader magnet, I mean, but
Right.
um, like a short story or whatever. I probably will do something like that at some point for this, for my, superhero name. I just haven't gotten around to doing it.
All right. And one last, this is what we'll call a Jeff Classic question. What social media platforms do you use?
I use Facebook and Twitter, I guess. I don't really, focus too much on social media. I just, I have my WordPress website for Lucas Flint set up so that it'll post the, posts on Twitter, but I don't really, do go on social media. And, um, I just never found it to be very useful for selling books. Maybe I'm not doing it right or something, or maybe, but I just haven't messed with it too much, I guess. I just been focusing on writing and getting the book out, which I think is the best advertisement.
Yep, that seems to be a common refrain here. And considering how rapidly you're able to get them out, I would say a fair amount of that speed is contributed to you not doing anything else.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to hand you back to Lindsay. I think we have at least one question from the listeners.
We do have one question. Dale says he's publishing a superhero-ish series. What categories aside from superhero and urban fantasy could he place it in?
I could put mine in the action adventure category since my books have lots of action and adventure in them. I thought, it'd be a good place, and it's gonna be doing okay in there. So, um, I thought so. Um, yeah, I always click action adventure and superhero on Amazon when I'm um, putting them in the genre, and I also put in keywords um, to get into. Well, I don't know if they actually help me get into other genres or not. I try not to put my books on lists that I don't think they're appropriate for. I don't really think my superhero books are good for urban fantasy, for example, so you won't be able to find them on urban fantasy books. Although I think they are on the action adventure fantasy list or something. I don't know how they got there, but so yeah, action adventure is another category you might want to just put in when you're publishing your book on Amazon, and I guess other platforms too if you're going wide.
Yeah, and I was noticing when I was poking around that there's fantasy superheroes, and then there's also teens and young adults,
Mm-hmm.
fantasy superheroes. So that's two different options right there. I don't know if Dale's going to have the teenage characters in him. Joe says, don't put them in satire. Apparently that didn't work out for Joe.
Not so much.
I would think, yeah, some of the sci-fi and fantasy keywords that you can find, I think if you just Google Kindle Direct sci-fi fantasy keywords, can get you into some quirky little categories. I mean, I'm looking at it now. There's one for mutants and clones and robots. So depending on what you're doing with your story,
Yeah.
and it's possible that you might want to look at that list. A couple more you could try to get.
Yeah, like I said, I don't, my stories don't really have clones or mutants in them, I guess, that much. So I don't really put them in there, but I guess if if your Grow book does have that or cover those subjects, and I guess there's no harm in putting them in those categories with the right keywords.
No mutants at all? How do these guys get to be superheroes if they're not mutants?
Well, I guess, they probably would be considered mutants if you're put them in the Marvel, universe, because like the way superhero powers work in my universe that they're genetic. They usually develop when you're in your, when people are in their adolescent years. So I suppose you could argue. So I suppose like if you're judging them by like X-Men standards, they'd be mutants. But I don't really call them that, and I don't really, I guess, think of them that way. But so I guess if I wanted to, really pandemic, I could have put them in that category, but I just decided not to.
There's genetic engineering. There's a category.
Yeah.
Although I should
Yeah.
point out, I don't know if we've ever mentioned this before, but if you want to get into these little subcategories, you have to click the overarching category.
Hmm.
So like if you wanted to be in mutants, you'd have to be in one of the science fiction
Yeah.
categories in order to get that keyword to come up. All right. So just in closing, what kind of advice would you have for anyone trying to, try superhero fiction that you haven't already given us?
Let me think. I guess making sure that you're. I think having a good cover is really good. I think the covers that I have for my books are really good. I'm really proud of them. I think they're a big reason why my books have done so well. Because they're very, I think they convey the genre very well, and they're very interesting and exciting to look at. So, um, they're kind of expensive, but I think they're well worth it, and they've always earned back their costs. So I think they're a good investment. So yeah, if you're going, so like with any other book, make sure you have a good cover that conveys the genre at a glance, and you should be okay.
All right, cool. And why don't you tell us, is there anything you're working on right now that you want to talk about, or any new projects coming up?
Like I said, next year I'm doing a new superhero series, a sequel series, that's going to be focusing on a team of superheroes versus just the one guy that I did for this series. I don't know how well that will do. I suspect it might. It's not. I don't think it's going to be as on genre as the series was. May not have written the market, but I do have fan base developed by now, so maybe it'll still do well. And I'm also doing a fantasy trilogy that's also coming out next year. That I don't know if it will do. It's more written to market than my past fantasy series were, so I think it has a chance to do better than my past fantasy series. So we're gonna see how that goes. And that's about it for
All right, cool. Well, let us know where people can find you and what the name of your first book is.
Well, you can find me at www.lucasflint.com, and I got links to all my social media on there and stuff, and all my books. You can go and look through them there. And the first book of this series is called The Superhero's Test. You can find it on Amazon, get Kindle Unlimited. It's also in paperback if you prefer the Dead Tree version.
All right, cool. I will put the links to your book and your webpage in the show notes. This is episode 110. If you guys want to come by, marketingsff.com. Leave a comment. Let us know if you want to hear more about superheroes, or if you have any questions. We would appreciate it. Thanks for joining us tonight, Timothy. Hope you had fun.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, and thanks for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So long, everybody.